But Jason Dietz, Mr. Dietz, he's worked for the Federal Highway Administration for 20 years in various field engineering positions in 2 states, Washington, D.C., Central and Eastern Federal Lands, and now Pavement Materials Technical Service Team at the FHWA Research Center in Lakewood, Colorado. He's actively involved in developing, improving, and implementing technologies for pavement and materials, and has also been actively involved in design, construction, pavement management, testing, and rehabilitation of asphalt and concrete pavements. He also provides technical assistance in pavement forensic investigations and review of material and construction-related specifications. He currently serves as a project manager for FHWA Resource Center of Tack Coat Workshops, nationally and cooperative with the Asphalt Institute. Jason obtained his Bachelor of Science and Master of Science degrees in Civil Engineering from the University of Nevada, Reno. Mr. Dietz is a member of and provides support to various TRB subcommittees and is a member of the Association of Asphalt Pavement Technologists, AAPT.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I was asked about a week ago to come here to speak on behalf of Rob Orthmeyer. He couldn't attend. He had some other obligations, so he called me a couple of weeks ago. Are you available? I said, yeah, well, what am I going to be doing? He goes, I need somebody to talk about pavement preservation at one of the conferences. And I said, sure. For those that know me, I have a kind of a passion for recycling and preservation, so I'm glad he was able to ask me, and I'm glad here to talk to you a little bit about federal highway initiatives. There's no mandates. Everybody yelling and screaming? Okay. I gotta get you guys livened up here. One of the first things, and I'll kick this workshop off with this saying, applying the right treatment on the right road at the right time. It doesn't get enough emphasis. Now, as you go out on the roads and you see inspectors, you see engineers on projects, it always comes back to this. I mean, when they developed this, some time ago, there was a lot of oomph into this, and there's a lot of meaning behind it, and it needs to be emphasized more than a few times. With that said, prior to some of the initiatives FHWA has adopted, one of the things that I've recognized as another good toolbox for some of your inspectors out there on projects and so forth is this checklist series. As everybody's now gone into smartphones and all this nice processes of getting information, who's familiar about this app right here? And if you're not, I hope you become familiar with it, because there's a lot of great checklists with this, and I like to recommend it, get a chance to look at it. As you can see here, this is only 1 through 8, but there's 14 of them that you can go to. And once you pick one, as I go, I'm going to choose thin hot mix asphalt overlays. This is kind of how it's broken down into preliminary responsibilities, project operation considerations, open to traffic. There's a lot of very useful information. And a lot of this came from working with industry, state, local agencies, and et cetera to put these on. So I really highly recommend, or catch me during break and I can show you where this Apple app is. All you got to do is type in FHWA and you'll see the checklist series there, and I recommend you kind of take a time to look at that. Along with that, for all you know that MAP 21 passed just recently, and with MAP 21, here were some of the core programs that came out of it. 58% went to the National Highway Performance Program, quite a bit. 27% to the Surface Transportation Program, 6% to the Highway Safety Improvements, and 6% on the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Program. That kind of gives you a rough breakdown. With that, here's a pie diagram kind of showing the $37.7 billion per year in formula funding. And this is how it's broken up, and as you can see, the 58%, the 21.8 million for National Highway Performance, and then you have your surface program and et cetera. So this kind of gives you a little schematic of where we're going and where the funds are being put in. Next, I want to go into talk about a little bit about pavement preservation within MAP 21. And as you can see here, for MAP 21, for the federal aid questions, how many times does pavement preservation show up in MAP 21? Well, the answer is 35 times within that law, and it's broken down into the highway system, 24 times historic, and then the policy. Along with that, where do those areas where pavement preservations are defined? And as you can see here in the one section on definitions on asset management, the term includes preservation. As well, by striking the word "and rehabilitation" and inserted rehabilitation and preservation. So that's kind of key. Along with that came the national highway system on the interstate system. Construction does not prohibit a state from carrying out construction, maintenance, and preservation. That's new. Restoration and rehabilitation activities for a portion of the interstate system. As well, on the national highway system, eligible projects. Preservation is now included. Moving on, for the surface transportation program, it talks about eligible projects, and along with this, it incorporates preservation is included. So it has been, and this is good news for those that have been waiting for it, but it's probably not enough, but I think we're getting in the right direction. With that said, one of the things that has came out, and some of our federal highway reps have been a part of, is Sharp 2. Who's familiar with Sharp 2 renewal? All right, we have some few people. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. The 4 focus areas were safety, reliability, capacity, and renewal. Furthermore, the framework, where did this consist of? Well, it looked at the state DOT's challenges with infrastructure, with congestion, and so forth. It wanted to look at what the state's needs were for part of this Sharp 2 program. The Sharp 2 basically came from TRB. It started in 2013. Since then, AASHTO and Federal Highway has taken it over, and it's become the term solutions, and which we'll talk about next. And then it also wanted to come out with benefits. What were the benefits that the states can use for these programs? And we'll go into that further. But this was a partnership. It included Federal Highway, AASHTO, and the Transportation Research Board. Moving on at a glance, it talked about the Sharp 2 products. As I mentioned, it came out of TRB and then came over to the AASHTO and Federal Highway's responsibility. It looked at products with solutions where processes, software, and test procedures and specifications can be used to make life simpler for the DOTs. In addition, it looked at field testing, implementation, and education connections, how it can be rolled out to the communities. And back on that slide, there was 275 Sharp nationwide projects that came out of this. And then we'll talk about it further up above. 64 are part of the Sharp 2 research activities, and we'll talk about just a partial one that included pavement preservation. The 3 core benefits for the outcomes for the research: we wanted to make sure we save lives, save money, and save time. We've all heard that before, but this was really the core benefits for this program. One of the things that came out of the Sharp 2 implementation was the assistance program. And I like to really focus on this because there has been DOTs that took part of this, and they're going on to the last final stage of this. So as I talk a little bit about this, if you're interested, please go to the website that I'm going to recommend and be a part of it, because we're looking for DOTs to take action on this. For this program, it was designed to help the DOTs, the MPOs, local agencies, and other interested organizations deploy these Sharp 2 solutions, these research activities, by 3 different ways. By proof of concept method, if a DOT or a local agency felt that they're afraid to be really wholly committed, they could, as a part of this IAP program for their state or local agency, they could have the Federal Highway and other folks come in and help them just get started on creating a proposal, creating a starting point of where to get started. Next came the lead adopter incentive, where most agencies played a role, where they had the knowledge, but they wanted to get it out to the public and wanted to try it out for the first time. Next came the user incentive program for accomplishing. They had the initiative, they knew what they were doing, but they just needed the funding to move it forward. From this, as you can see, 30 products have been offered in the rounds 1 through 6, and round 7 is the last announcement, and keep that in mind as we move forward. Show me the money. Everybody wants to see the money. Some of the research activities with Safety Lou had $205 million a part of this. For MAP 21, for the implementation process, it had $169 million. And the partnership roles, as I mentioned before, TRB, AASHTO, and FHWA, all played a major contributor for the partner relationship to make this run. Steve Cooper from the Federal Highway Resource Center out of Connecticut was kind of the leader person for this as our resource center rep. As you can see, for the proof of concept pilot at 100K as a pilot, for lead adapter, 40K to 300K for leader, and user incentive, 75K, and etc. So for the rounds 1 through 6, for the proof concept, lead adapter, and user incentive, totally we had a $6 million that was incorporated in that process. For the value in kind equipment loan program, transportation assistant, and training was a little bit over $1 million. And some of the recipients that we had is 64 projects nationwide, 37 agencies that included DOTs and 1 tollway authority. And with some of the DOTs, we had 3 DOTs that had more than just one. They had 4 or 5 projects. Now, here's the resource that I recommend you guys write down for those that might be interested in it. Some great opportunities there for if your state would like to be a part of this. Take a minute and write this down and look into it further as you see fit. www.fhwa.dot.gov/GoSharp2. And if I can be of any further assistance during break, please feel free to come talk to me. Moving on some of the different areas, as you can see on the bottom, the guidelines for preservation high volume roadways, R26 is our topic that we'll talk about further. But here is just a few of the other ones for managing risk and rapid renewal, R09, to organize reliability tools, and etc. Next, for the R26 guidelines for preservation for high volume roads, as you can see, lead adopter incentives, Missouri is one, Minnesota, and it was another one as well for the Midwest region. And then we have Wisconsin for the user incentive program. It'd be nice to see a little more darker orange and blue in there, so get a chance, take a peek. Next, the primary goals for this R26 was to apply the guidelines to expand state use of selected pavement preservation techniques and also document the process. With that, they looked at preservation projects. They had 13 agencies in DC participate in this first round. Over that, they had 30 projects with multiple treatments. And they created this map, and with this map, as you can see on there, it talked about the different preservation treatments that were used. Also with R26, it had a showcase by Mass DOT. With this, they conducted this in July, and it was on a certain particular roadway of US Route 3. 63 attended this, it included 8 agencies. Some of the highlights that came from this, it was a 22.5 miles in length of a roadway. The traffic volumes were from 95K to 105K, and the preservation treatments that were applied was your ultra-thin bonding wearing courses, and some of your fog seals, your shot lasting, and some additional fog seals with additional materials being applied. Furthermore, there were some workshops that were done. Alabama NCAT was in June 14. Minroads had a particular workshop. Arizona Rocky Mountain Party Partnership on October 14th, and Delaware had one. In addition, they have quarterly update conference calls to talk further about this, as well as there was a peer exchange by the Rhode Island DOT that 17 attended, 6 DOTs. They focused on project selection, which we know is the most important, design, contracting, construction, quality assurance, performance, and program issues. Now let's look at the favorite highway long-term pavement performance, and I know the gentleman following me is going to talk a little bit further about it, but particularly for federal highway, we wanted to have this experiment to look at both flexible and rigid pavements. We also wanted to make sure we had an expert task group to establish experiments to provide for the design of the material testing. And the goal was to build this for 48 test sites throughout the country. In addition, the cooperation for NCAT and En-ROADS partnership was other pavement preservation activities. And as you can see here, the accelerated road testing by En-ROADS and NCAT was kind of very important, along as these particular agencies looked at history of evaluating. We know that they have a history of looking at microsurfacing, chip seals, and et cetera. We know they currently have test sections out there that they're currently looking at, and also designing some newer ones in the future. We also recognize the long-term nature of measuring the impacts of the pavement preservation treatments, and this is some of the things that we're kind of wanting to get out of these partnerships. Furthermore, the emergency activities, we have this little circle diagram, and I'd like to talk a little bit about, on the bottom left, you see the PP regional partnerships. These partnerships play a major role in getting people engaged in these different new activities. We also came out with a research roadmap as well, and there's been discussions of maybe reviewing and going back to that and making some updates. About a month ago, we had a new pavement preservation expert task group meeting. It's been 2 or 3 years in the making that we haven't really had discussions, but we're in the process of going and moving that along and moving that further. Next is the emulsion task force group, which has been meeting over the last 3-4 years, which basically are creating standards out there for pavement preservation treatments. Just recently, we know that they've had 3 standard specifications going through the subcommittee on materials for approval, and we're hoping to have at least 4 or 5 more coming up in the near future. Lastly, we have the Asheville TSP Square, and you guys have a little bit of background about that. With that said, one of the other initiatives that I've been taking on outside of pavement preservation is looking at tack codes. Some folks around the country have called me the tack code man. But over the last year, since January till May, I've done 25 of these workshops. And from now until December, I got another 15 more coming. Basically, these workshops is a cooperative agreement with the Asphalt Institute. Directors from the DOTs have came to Federal Highway and have said, we got an issue. We need to get back to the basics. We're getting failures out there with thin lifts asphalt that are coming up without a bond. We need to get experience. We need to get people out there to understand the importance of this. And with this, as you can see on this little flyer, we have a description, the topics that we include, the common tack code grades. There's been research out there that basically across the country have noted that the tack code rates are lower than they should be. And so further, we go in there and we talk about that, and we also talk about your specification itself. Who can benefit from this class? Specification writers, project inspectors, contractors and staff, and material supplies. As you can see there, we had our first pilot last September in Sterling, Virginia. All those in green are ones that we have done. We have completed 25, like I said. We have 15 coming, and etc. Here are some upcoming. We got November 5th for Kansas, North Dakota, December 1st. And as you guys can read through there, if you see your state, write them down, and I can provide you further information on that. Now I leave it open for any questions. Well, I always like to take my little girls with me, so I like to say thank you if there is no questions, and come see me during breaks, and if I could be of any assistance, let me know. Thank you.